hold it, please. Help me share.
Give me the mic, please. Please, you're going to teach us to do. You're going to teach us to do, please. It's just a lot to you.
Hey. Hello.
Not to the voice.
Are we doing a test today?
No, it's not. Don't worry about it. So, today we are looking at writing tests. Specifically, we are working on, let's work on the essay. Edidion.
Yes, sir.
If any part of this video goes mute, you'll pay for it. Okay, so today let's begin by taking on the writing test, task 2 essay training. So I would like you to just take us through the stages or steps of writing an essay. But we shall begin with formula. What is the formula for writing an essay?
All right. For the essay, we have P1. We have P2.
Am I right? So you say P1.
So in the P1, we have we first we paraphrase.
Paraphrase.
Then we have a background
We have the thesis,
Oh, thesis.
right?
Yes.
Or background statement.
Yes, either.
Okay.
Then we have your stance. That's your opinion.
Then we have stance. Our stance can be what?
Our
Could be
opinion, your
opinion.
view,
It could be view.
or your suggestion.
Could be suggestion. Could be merit or demerit, right?
Yes.
It could also be what?
Advantage or
Advantage
disadvantage.
or disadvantage. Then what else do we have?
That's all for P1.
Okay.
So for P2,
Editor, Gina, could you please increase this volume slightly? For P2,
We have TS, that's topic stand, or sentence.
Yes.
And then we have B, that's background problem.
Please go ahead. Or
Background problem. First,
body paragraph.
one paragraph. That's true. Background problem.
The TS is what?
Topic sentence. The body paragraph. That's the explanation of your topic. That's the body paragraph.
Yeah, and your stance.
And your
Stance.
instance.
Okay,
Example.
Example.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to
P3.
P3.
So it's the same as P2.
Alright, so topic sentence, body paragraph, and an example, illustration for avoidance of repetition. So we're using illustration.
So P4,
P4,
that's the conclusion.
conclusion,
Your stance.
and stance. Alright, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so here on the board we have the formula for writing an essay. This formula has its basis on P1, P2, P3, and P4, meaning that you're meant to have 4 paragraphs. Don't write more than 4, don't write less than 4. Your essay should have just 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph is also called what? Thank you. The first paragraph is also called an introductory paragraph. It is the introduction. Then the paragraphs 2 and 3 are called the body paragraphs. Those are the paragraphs that explains in detail whatever it is you're meant to discuss according to the question. Then your 4th paragraph is what? Conclusion. Right? Now, your first paragraph is the blueprint of your essay. From your paragraph 1 alone, the person marking your script, that's your examiner, can foretell what the other part of your essay will look like. From the first paragraph, the examiner can predict the material or quality or stuff you're made of, based on your interpretations, based on your paraphrasing, based on your position about the issue you are supposed to write about. Right? So it is important you ensure that your paragraph 1 is quite impressive. You need to do all you need to do. Do whatever you have to do to ensure that your paragraph 1 is well delivered. Now, in paragraph 1, the first thing we are meant to do will be what?
Okay. You write, you jot out your question, then you paraphrase, you bring out the point, then you look for if there are synonyms, then you write them back on the question.
Thank you. But you didn't answer my question.
Okay, again, I don't understand the question.
I asked, what is the first thing you do when you are asked to begin your essay?
You read your question once.
Thank you. One step at a go. Right? So the first thing to do is to read the question once. Why do we read the question once?
So you can just have, when you read that once, you get a picture or you understand it at once. But when you keep reading it, you get to use your own words or you get to have a different meaning. You get confused.
Right.
So just read once.
Okay. We read once not to understand. We read once to identify the key words in the question that you can substitute with their synonyms. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because the choice or decision to read once is because you need to paraphrase. When you read to understand before you paraphrase, the brain begins to tilt towards how you should solve the question, and it's going to affect your paraphrase. You would subconsciously begin to bring in or infuse those ideas the brain is thinking about into the paraphrase, and that would thwart everything, because the essence of paraphrase is to recopy the question that's on the question paper onto your answer sheet. Is that correct? So, recopying the question, you're meant to have a replica of the question exactly, right? But using synonyms, substitute words. Is that correct? And those substitute words must retain the exact meaning as established in the original question. Do you understand it? So please do not read to understand the question, but read to identify the key words in the question that you can substitute with their synonyms. I don't know if, is this clear?
Yeah.
Now, after reading the question once and identifying the key words you are sure about as regards their synonyms, what do you do next?
So you write after the paraphrase.
We have not paraphrased.
Okay, after writing the questions, you jot it down first. Because we have the synonyms, you write it down.
Where do we write down the synonyms?
First, in my own view.
Okay, nice. I like that.
After I read the question once, I could jot them somewhere. So when I get the exact meaning, then I write it back on the question. Yeah.
Nice. That's plain safe. Okay. It's also written. You have all of these steps I'm asking you, but you've not had time to go through your notes, don't worry. The steps I gave you on Monday or Tuesday, yeah. One of the steps, it was very explicit that once you read the question once and identify the keywords you can substitute, simply write the keyword, the synonyms on top of each word on the question paper as rough work. Do you understand this? This is, as an example, this is my question. Paraphrase plus thesis / background statement plus stands in bracket, opinion, view, suggestion, merit, demerit, advantage / disadvantage, close bracket. If I'm asked to paraphrase this, I would simply say rephrase, manifesto, right? Or planned action, right? Or intended action about what? The essay. That's your thesis statement. So I'll write it on top of it. Then here, my position. Then any of these can go, right? So I'm writing this on my question paper as rough work. So having identified all of those, I will then transfer the paraphrased version of this information onto my answer sheet. So when I'm paraphrasing, I will no longer write paraphrase, I'll write rephrase plus planned action statement, statement of intended action plus my position. That's my paraphrase of this. Please, is it clear to you? So that's the next step. Identify the keywords, write them on top of the words on your question paper as rough work. Then after that, what do? We transfer to our answer sheet, right? Once you've transferred to your answer sheet, what do we do next? We have successfully paraphrased at this point. Yes, please. We have paraphrased, we've transferred to our answer sheet. So this particular heading or subheading is completed. What next do we do?
So you got somewhere your thesis background, your stand. So when you start writing the report, it's really difficult for the beginner report. So you get
Nice. Just give it some more time. Give it good. Now, we have successfully paraphrased. We have transferred to our answer sheet. The next thing to do is to plan our essay, right? So to plan your essay, because you are like a lawyer who has taken his or her client to the court of law to defend the client, whether or not the person is guilty. It is the point you're bringing up that determines, right? So, you need to plan your essay. So to plan your essay, you have to go back to your question. You know, the first time you read was just once, and you didn't read to understand the question at that point. You read to identify the keywords you can paraphrase, right? So now you've successfully paraphrased. You need to go to read the question to have proper understanding. So at this point, you are free to read the question twice or thrice. So once you've read the question 2 times or thrice, and it's crystal clear to you, you should ask yourself, what path should I take? What am I expected to do in this essay? So once you've identified what the instruction requires of you to do, you should draft or plan the essay on that question paper as rough work. So let's assume this is your question paper. Now the question ends at this point. So the whole of this part is blank for you. The back page of the question paper is also blank. So you need to use those blank or vacant areas to do your rough planning. Now let's assume that the question is saying discuss both sides of the issue. Maybe there are 2 factions that raised concern. Maybe a faction actually said or expressed that Westernization has influenced our culture. The initiation of Western culture has affected or influenced our lifestyle. Another faction now says, contrarily, the introduction of Western culture has brought about absolute independence to us. Now, instruction says, discuss both sides of the argument and give your opinion. So if this is the case, are we supposed to take side? What are we to do?
You're right, for both topics.
Thank you. Instruction says discuss both sides of the argument. So you don't take no side. So you're meant to raise strong and convincing point for each faction, right?
Yes.
So on your question paper, you generate a strong point, convincing point on the question paper. Each point you draft out, you are to attach an example that you intend to use to buttress it beside that point. Please, is this clear? So, let's assume you drafted out a point to support the faction that expressed that the initiation of Western culture has influenced our ways of life. You brought out a point. Then another point would be for the other faction that have the opinion which says introduction of Western lifestyle has brought about absolute independence. Then you attach an example. Now you're ready for the 2 areas. The next thing to do is to bring in your opinion. So what is it you would like to opine on the issue? Now opinion at this point is at your own discretion. You choose or decide whether you should opine in a way that will balance the 2 sides of the argument, or you may choose to be one-sided. IELTS will not penalize you. Yes, please.
When you make the stance, like you said, after like you are given to, you are asked to discuss either for this or this, and you make a statement for the first one, the first and the second one. When you are giving your opinion, you are not allowed, you have to not choose the side you are favoring, or you can just digress between both of them. I don't understand about this.
Okay. Correct. I think I actually explained that what you're to do when you have drafted out the points for each, right? Your opinion right now, which is your stance, you are now left to decide whether you want to drop an opinion that will support a particular path and leave the other guy, or you want to drop an opinion that balances the 2 concerns raised. Do you understand? It's your own decision. Now, you need to draft that opinion of yours on the question paper as rough work. Once you're done planning your essay by drafting out your points, attaching example to each, proofing your opinion, you are ready for the essay. That planning you've done has solved your essay by 50%. Just by the rough work you've done on the question papers, you have solved the entire essay by 50%. So what you do at the point of successfully planning your essay, what do we do next?
So after planning your essay, then you go back to your answer booklet. Then you can write your thesis or background section.
Perfect. Okay, so now at this point, at the point of planning your essay, you've written only one thing on the question, on your answer paper. At the point of planning or drafting your points on the question paper as rough work, you have successfully achieved a particular feat on your answer sheet. What's that?
The paraphrase.
Thank you. The paraphrase. You have successfully paraphrased. That one is transferred, completed on your answer sheet. Now, you have also planned out your points and dropped your opinion as rough work on your question paper. So you need to go back to your answer sheet to continue with your paragraph 1, right? And your paragraph 1 has paraphrase already established, so you need to pick up from thesis or background statement. Now, what is that thesis or background statement? I liken the background statement to manifesto, right? I usually use that as a practical illustration. Now, what is manifesto? Do you remember what manifesto is?
What you intend to do.
When you tell people what you intend to do, and by practice, this is obtainable, or this is often seen by or within the political arena, right? They show off manifestos. In IELTS, your manifesto is your thesis or background statement. Do you understand this? So, whatever you want to establish as your background statement must be in line with what the question instructs you to do. In the imaginary question I said earlier, what are we required to do? In the imaginary question I raised earlier, what are we required to do? Yes, please.
Then you write about what you could write in that essay, maybe what your view on what you're writing, the topic.
Okay, I think you may have forgotten that imaginary question. Can you remember?
Westernization.
Aha, can you remember now? The imaginary question on two factions, one talking about the influence of Western life, and the other guy is saying that it has brought about absolute freedom. Now the instruction came after that. What was that instruction? Discuss what?
The both factions.
Thank you. Do you remember? Nice. Now we are expected to discuss the two sides. So
that will be the background. We will discuss both.
Exactly. That's what your statement will establish. That in this essay, I will be writing to discuss the two issues raised above. Because the instruction says discuss both sides. Please, is this clear? Are you following? So, once you write or make your thesis or background statement, remember, your thesis or background statement should not come on a different line after your paraphrase. You are still treating paragraph 1. So wherever your paraphrase stops at, where you have your full stop, continue from there as long as there is still space. Perhaps, let's assume the paraphrase ends here. You still have space to continue. Do you understand? But if it ends at this point, of course there is no space, so you can go to the next line, but don't constitute a paragraph. So you continue from the same margin as the first line, right? So your thesis or background statement, how do we make that expression? Can you remember? Thank you. So I'm going to write whatever you're telling me now. Of course, it has to begin with a capital letter, right? Because there is a presumed full stop of the paraphrase. So we are saying.
In this essay,
Mm-hmm.
I will be writing to explain or discuss.
I'll be writing
To
to.
explain or discuss.
IELTS doesn't want or.
Okay. I'll be writing
To.
to explain.
Okay. Maybe you can say and instead of or.
Okay. Two arguments. That's
Okay.
in the. For the
Writing to explain.
writing to explain two arguments to be explained above. That's after you issue a paraphrase.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I would rather we go with the word discourse instead of just explain. Hmm? Now, look at this point. This is where the thesis background statement ends. You should consider using a semicolon to end your use a semicolon to end your thesis background statement. Not a full stop, not a comma. Now the reason for this is so you can bring in your stance, that opinion you drafted on your question paper. It comes in immediately after the thesis or background statement. Do you understand? So whatever it is you may have opined on your question paper as rough work now comes in here. So once you drop your opinion, well written, then your period, your full stop comes in. And that would mark the end of your paragraph 1. Please, do you understand? So your paragraph 1 has 3 major components: paraphrase, thesis or background statement, stance. You can as well choose to show off in your paragraph 1. How would you show off? By bringing in what we call preamble. There is what we call preamble in writing. Now, where will the preamble come in? Preamble comes in after the paraphrase. You drop a little preamble to show off, to give a holistic ideology about the issue being discussed before you say what you are going to do. For instance, I will say the question imaginarily. The question says, some aged individuals feel that the initiation of Western culture has affected our ways of life, full stop. Others opine that it has brought about total freedom. Discuss the 2 arguments above and give your own opinion. This is the question. Now I'll paraphrase. A number of elderly persons suggest that the initiation or introduction of Western ways of life has impacted our culture, whereas, others are of the thought that it has led to absolute independence. Full stop. I've paraphrased the question imaginarily. Then my preamble. It is a known fact that every region across the globe have their native ways of life, which comprises their food, dressing, ways of greeting, ways of showing or exhibiting respect, the type of music they play and also sing to, and every other thing. This is enshrined in the concept called culture. However, it is evident that when there is an invasion into an existing lifestyle, it is open and possible that there will be a sort of influence which may be negative or positive. And when the negative is overwhelming, it becomes a challenge or a concern to be worried about. Therefore, in this essay, I will be writing to discuss the two arguments raised above. Although, in my experiential opinion, inasmuch as it's good for change to come in an environment, it is pertinent for some form of checkmating, right? Supervision, monitoring on how that new ideology is going to affect or influence what be. As overlooking certain things that are coming in from the foreign world may end up being a serious menace in the society. Do you understand this? So I'm saying that my opinion is balancing the situation, that it is important for change to come in, but there is the need to watch out for what that change may bring about or may cause in the nearest future. So if it is something that is a potential threat to the people, then the excesses or the acceptance or adoption should be checkmated. Do you understand this? So I'm not taking side by saying there is need for people to feel free to express themselves the way they want, to look at an older person and say, "Hi Dad, hi Mr. John." You know, that's the influence of the Western culture. Unlike when you go to the Yorubas, they tell you, "Ekaro," you right? That's the culture. So, but now because of Westernization, they tell you, you see a smuggler. Shut up, Dad. That's what we call F40 in Europe. The one that will reset you. That one will come. Because that's not our culture. Do you understand? So you want to look at points that would, be favorable to the both sides. For instance, the negative part of your culture should be looked at. The part that says female genital, is it mutilation or circumcision? Circumcision. It should be looked at. The act of sacrificing twins, little babies, killing them innocently. That should be also looked at, right? The use of the abolishment or sending into exile a person that is perceived to be possessed. There are such fetish beliefs in the past. They say that this one is Aje, so Abanje. They say send him to the forest, send her to the forest, send him to the forest. So all of that can be looked at on the negative side of culture that the Western lifestyle has tried to kick against. The likes of saying that all the certificates of females end in the kitchen, or they tell you is in the other room. All of that should be looked at, right? So the Western culture has come to say no, everyone should be given equal rights to acquire education. People should be exposed and be empowered, rather than making the females housewives and nothing more, right? So those are things you want to look at when you are raising points on the other people who feel it has brought about independence. Do you understand this? So that's the way your paragraph 1 should go. You need to think broad. You need to think outside the regular. Else, you just be very limited and narrow-minded, yes. Right? So that's it about P1. After writing your P1, the P2, P3, and P4 are partially solved. Your P2, what was this topic sentence about? That first point you drafted out in favor of those that say it has affected their culture.
When you are doing your P1 and you bring your first points in the thesis and background, are you going to make it a little bit short and straight to the point? Because if you're writing your P2, now, you're going to talk about the first point you made, and you're expected to talk more about it and give an instance. So is it that when we're making it with background, it should be a little bit straight to the point with an illustration there? I want to give an illustration there as well. Then when we come to P2, talk more about it in more words and different from the one we use in the background, and still give an example with different words that we use in the background.
All right. Thank you so much. Please, I need you to talk on that.
My own view.
Yes.
Okay, the first paragraph, that's the P1. You let them know, like P1 is basically everything you want to write about. That's it. From your first paragraph, you should know what you're writing about. So they don't have to do much or read much. In case the person that will read one. So you're going to make known your points in the P1. But don't elaborate, don't substantiate. It will be something like summarize.
It's like straight to the point.
Yes. You won't give illustrations there. It's the second paragraph.
So there will not be a need for an instance.
No instance.
All right. Thank you so much. The truth is, your thesis or background statement gives a green light on what you plan to do without making mention the points. If the question says, do you agree or disagree? And on your question paper, you have drafted points in favor of agreement. So when you come to tell the examiner what you have planned to do, you are not bringing those points there. You are only telling the examiner, in this essay, I'm writing to absolutely agree with the points. Raised above. But the points to talk about should not come in.
So your instance will not be coming in.
Nothing comes in. The only thing that is being established lucidly is the fact that you have categorically established what you have planned to do. If your points are for disagreement, don't write those points in paragraph 1. Rather, give the hint to the examiner by saying, in this essay, I will be writing to clearly disagree, because your points are for disagreement. Those points will now come in here. So you pick your first point for disagreement and write it, and that would be your topic sentence. Now, after writing the topic sentence, you begin to expatiate on it. Give lots of detailed explanation, and that would constitute the body paragraph. Please, do you understand?
Okay, but after the preamble, when we did preamble, so like that background is like story.
Is that like what?
Story, like we telling stories. We are not going to give them the points there.
Yeah.
So we just tell them maybe one less will be inflow of Westerners, so just try so that. So I was thinking I was going to just give them a taste of maybe
your points.
Yeah, so you have to read second point to have everything.
Okay. That can also make sense. That can make sense only if you are good with your creative writing skills. So it becomes a suspense to the reader.
Okay, so you will start the point, but won't complete it.
That's what she's trying to, yes. She's saying she would like to give them a snippet of the idea, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that's perfect, but it depends on how creative you be.
You say watch out.
You tell them watch out in part 2. Okay, so in your paragraph 1, after the paraphrase, the preamble can come in very brilliant. If you are a good writer, bring in your preamble. If an example says, if a question says, some experts are of the thought that giving young adults unlimited access to internet helps them in their intuitive thinking, while others feel it exposes them to lots of immoral activities, right? Then your preamble, after paraphrasing that question, you are saying at the inception of the Y2K era, which started in the year 2000, a lot of innovations, inventions, and technological introductions came in. People started moving away from the analog lifestyle into the digital way of life. Hence, it is obvious that a lot of youths who are well exposed in the technological innovations tend to be more creative and achieve a lot more when they are given unrestricted access to internet. Whereas those who are not privileged to have access suffer a lot of setback. Therefore, in this essay, I will be writing to, give
So your preamble just did, it's just like you combined the for and against and put them together and send it.
Yes, you are giving a little enlightenment about access to internet.
Enlightenment. Yeah, I just said it's just like you summarize your thesis.
Well, for me, no, because I have a lot to talk about.
It depends on how you can write.
It depends on how
You
creative.
cannot write, you just copy it down again.
It depends on how creative you are. As far as I'm concerned, the preamble just give you a snippet of what technological world looks like, how it helps people who have the access or privilege.
You have also said how it does not help people.
How, and those who don't have access, what they suffer.
Yes.
Perfect. So in this essay, I'm going to, maybe the question says, discuss both sides. So you're saying in this essay, I'll be writing to vividly discuss issues raised. However, that's my opinion now, I want to come in. However, I strongly believe that in as much as there is the concern of engaging in a lot of illicit activities on the internet when the users are not being monitored or supervised, it is also pertinent to understand that there is great need for people to do well, for people to explore, for people to attain great heights if they are given access. Therefore, parents, government should ensure that there are cyber police to checkmate the use of internet, and also to place some level of instructions on the internet that will restrict or curtail people from abusing the privilege. For instance, children who are less than 18 years should not be allowed to have access to adult sites, right? So there should be parental control, where a child, before a child will have access to a page, the parent receives the pop-up. So it's either you decline or accept. That's it. So my opinion now is not kicking against these guys, is trying to establish that this is nice, but to avoid excesses or abuse or privilege, this should be done.
When you give your background, the background was just like one line. Like you just, because your preamble was more the talking point.
Expose, yes.
Then the background was more in this. So what we'll be writing in our question paper. So not the answer book, the question paper as the rough work will be like an instance for our P2 and another instance for our P2. So we can just bring them to that.
Yes.
To that will answer booklet.
Yes. Not just instance. The point itself.
Okay, the point
and the instance. Thank you. So that point would come in here as your paragraph 2 topic sentence on your answer paper. Do you understand? Then you expatiate, explain in detail that point, and then bring in that instance you drafted on your question paper. You bring it in. Do you understand this? Then you go to your paragraph 3, the second point you drafted down on your question paper. You bring it in as a topic sentence to paragraph 3. Then you give detailed explanation of it.
So you can just say, I am for this point, then okay, I'm supporting the notion. That this. For instance, you give then you now bring in the example of.
That would be very casual.
Very casual, but I'm just trying to make an example.
Yes. Okay.
So we will start it with, okay, for the notion or an introduction to explain that you are supporting this point, then talk about that point, then you now give an example.
Yes.
After why you are supporting this point.
Yes.
So that is the full.
The full paragraph.
So an introduction, then talk about it more.
Yes.
Then,
and then give your instance.
Instance.
That makes your paragraph 2. Then paragraph 3, pick the second point. Then explain in detail.
Points,
give your
an
example.
example.
And that's your third point. Do you understand? Okay. So once you have successfully achieved paragraphs 2 and 3, you go to your conclusion. So what happens in your conclusion? There are 3 different ways of concluding an essay. Out of the 3 ways, 2 of those 3 ways are very synonymous. The application is the same. So look at how you conclude. You can use the word summarily, or use the word conclusively, or use the expression in light of the above. These are ways to conclude your essay. These are ways to begin your paragraph 4. Right? Now, your essay requires you to write a minimum of how many words? Can you remember? 250 words. So when you check your paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, and you realize you've written up to 250.
When you're counting the words, see that, let's say for example, when you're written pure. So paraphrase is 1 word.
Yes.
Thesis is 1 word. Background is another word. Statement is another word. Stance is another word. Let's say for example, like in this essay, 1, 2, 3, I is 4. So okay. That's what I meant.
Do you understand? So how do you count to confirm how many words you've written between paragraphs 1 and 3? How do you know how many words you've gotten all from those paragraphs? You need to check the first 3 or 4 lines of the first paragraph. The first 3 or 4 lines of the first paragraph. Count each line individually. For instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 has appeared like twice, right?
Yes.
So you take average of 6 words per line. Then you check how many lines you have, counting from paragraph 1 to 3. You multiply by 6.
So you can't divide and go like 6.
Once you have gotten an average of the number of words you have per line, you then count the total number of lines you've written from paragraphs 1 to 3 and multiply by 6. That will give you an idea of how many words you've written from paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. Do you understand? So that will help you to determine what type of closure you are to use, what type of conclusion you are to bring in. So if you feel you have written up to 250 words or more, covering or being covered in paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, then your 4th paragraph should not be lengthy. Please don't overblow, don't prolong or elongate your paragraph 4. Just use in light of the above. That's the best option for you. If you have written up to 240 words above, the best way to conclude or start your paragraph 4 is the use of "in light of the above." Why is it so? This is because when you say "in light of the above," you don't need to start talking about whatever you have written in the previous paragraphs anymore. You don't talk about them anymore. Once you write "in light of the above," you simply just give your opinion. In light of the above, I therefore recommend strongly that you drop your opinion. Do you understand this? But if you check what you've written, some people don't like to write. Edition, I hope all is well. You're just smiling to yourself. Gina, do you have rope here?
No, sir.
Please, check. Because I don't understand the idiom. Now, if what you've written is between maybe 180 words to maybe 210 words, if you check and this is the range of what you've written, you still have a lot to write. Because you need an additional what? 40 to get up to the minimum requirement. Right? So what you do, use any of these guys. So you have to simply use summarily or conclusively. Summarily or conclusively. Now when you do that, when you use summarily or conclusively to begin your fourth paragraph, you are bound by the practice to give the synopsis, to summarize those topics you brought in to your paragraph 2 and 3. Whatever topic you brought into your paragraph 2 and 3, you have to summarize them.
In different ways.
Yes, before bringing in your stance. Please, do we understand? Summarize before bringing in your stance. With that, you are buying more words, and then you are still concluding your essay.
So your stance is your opinion from P1.
Yes,
So
you are bringing it down, but not verbatim, not word for word.
Again.
You paraphrase that again. Do you understand this? Okay. Tell me if you have any concern about writing an essay. What's your concern?
My concern is in too much words and we need.
You say you're okay with your essay, right? Then you need to write. I want to see. Really?
Yes.
They start when you started. After I've taught you essay,
Yes.
I'll look for it. You wrote it here in the class, right? I'll look for it. I'll look for it. I'll see if I can mark that today. So I'll show you. Will you be here tomorrow? So we'll look at it together too. But you need to write.
Yes.
Even if you don't want to write, to prepare for your writing test. If you don't want to write, because when I wrote IELTS, I never wrote anything for one day. What I was doing then was I would see different question types. I had a PDF file that contained about 250 different essay questions. So I would read the question and I'll just, in my mind, imagine me solving it. So I generated points in my head. So that's the way I got exposed to different question types. I never wrote, no one ever assessed me. And I got 7.0 in my writing. Then I never knew anything about, I didn't even know there's something called IELTS class. So I just had to. So all you need to do, if you don't want to write, if you have no one to assess or evaluate what you've done, get yourself preoccupied or engaged with different questions. There are different question types, about 5 of them. The one that says discuss both sides of the question. This one, you don't have an option, right? You are compelled to talk about the 2 sides. Then you give your opinion. Your opinion can be one-sided. What's the problem? You can go. Just sit out. Okay. You may, if you're asked to discuss both sides of the question, you don't have an option. So you are bound to talk about the first fraction, whatever points, whatever issue they raised, you discuss it in paragraph 2. Then the second group, you discuss their issue in paragraph 3. If you have a question that says, do you agree or disagree? Do you have an option? Do we have an option?
Yes.
What's our option?
Do you agree or disagree? So
Okay, you have to choose one.
choose one.
Whether to...
Agree or disagree.
Nice. I'm getting ready now. So you have option to choose one, right? Whether to agree or disagree. If a question says, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Do we have an option? To what extent do we agree or disagree?
And it's just one, like, to what extent do you agree? So you tell them yes or no. I think it's just one you're answering actually.
To what extent do you, maybe there is an issue raised, just an issue. And the question says, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this issue?
It's when you pick it or disagree. So you pick if you agree or disagree. That's it. Say to what extent. You tell them the extent you agree. Or if you don't agree, you still say you don't agree.
Please, answer this. Just give me your answer now. When the question says, to what extent do you agree or disagree? What options do we have?
We have both.
To what extent do you
Agree or disagree?
or disagree? It's one, you're having one option, like you have two things, agree or disagree. So you pick one. You're picking one if you agree, or if you don't or if you disagree. So it's not both, it's one you're writing to support.
Perfect.
Yes.
Final answer.
Alright, I agree. If I don't agree, I'll get it.
You disagree. What options do we have?
I don't know what to say.
It's a little tricky. You need to understand it.
I don't. When it says
To what extent
So
do
not
you
the
agree?
extent, I agree.
Now you're hitting the point. To what extent do you agree or disagree? First, it's either you agree or disagree. Second, if you agree, to what extent? Do you understand the difference? To what extent do you agree or disagree? So, you need to decide if you agree or disagree. If you agree, if you want to write to agree, to what extent? So whether you agree to an extent or you agree completely.
So it's either you agree that you agree to what they are saying, but not all of it. Or
Exactly. Or you agree in all totality. So now there is an implication. If you agree completely, you are to raise two strong points for agreement. And those two strong points will be discussed one in paragraph 2, the second in paragraph 3. But if you agree to an extent, you have to write in paragraph 2 to agree, then paragraph 3 you disagree because you say to some extent. When you agree to an extent, it means you have something contrary to it.
Is that the same question you asked?
Yes.
So, like, to some extent, that means you have a contrary opinion. But if you agree, me, I will agree everything. I don't have any contrary opinion.
Okay, so if you agree to it, you don't need to find a contrary opinion to make up your
Yes,
PT.
but if you don't really agree,
You have to now make your PT
yes,
the contrary opinion.
yes.
So if you now agree, what will not be PT?
If you agree completely, then you bring two strong points for agreement.
In that question, it will be brought there, or you have to just know that you have to.
What will be brought there?
As in, will it be written? Will it be written in the question
That what?
If you agree completely, bring
No. It's not going to be written. You will understand it. That's why I'm explaining to you right now how it works. If you agree completely, you are generating two strong points, both for agreement. But you're going to distribute the two strong points amongst P2 and P3. But if you agree to an extent, that means P2 is for agreement, then P3 is for disagreement. Do you understand this?
I understand.
Another question type would ask you, why do they do so? What are the benefits? maybe there is a particular scenario or a lifestyle being exhibited by a people. So the question is asking you, why do those people do that? What are the possible benefits? When you have this type of question, let me narrate the situation. Now, there is, imaginarily, there is a display or there is a lifestyle being exhibited by a people at a certain location. Now, that attitude may not be favorable naturally, but they still go on to do that. Question would ask you, in your opinion, why do they do so? And what are the effects or benefits? This is a question type. Your thesis statement, because if you understand the question, it will be easier for you to make your background statement. But if you don't understand the question, you won't even know where to begin from. And that is where the examiner would read and say, oh, this one, let me just focus. Do you understand? When the examiner reads your P1 and it's well articulated, the choice of words, your dictions are top notch. Your interpretation and translation of the question is sweet. They know that this person looks well enlightened. Let me see. Well,
They read through the whole passage or just at a glance?
It depends on your P1. If your P1 is giving a spike to focus, then they'll focus. That it depends on the type of background you blow in your P1. If you use wrong words, we call it malapropism. If you use wrong words in wrong context, then you are spiking interest. They will be more interested in what your other parts will be. And the more they circle errors, then the more your points keep dropping. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So, if you're asked, why do they do so? What are the effects? Your thesis background statement should establish that in this essay, I will be writing to categorically or emphatically or clearly establish reasons people indulge in such acts and also establish the possible implications. That's your background statement. Do you understand? Now, you need to understand and interpret them right so that your thesis statement will align with the instruction. Please, is this clear to us? Okay, so that's it about this guy right about now. I would allow us to take on a quick. Are you rushing out?
Yes.
I understand. Alright, so thank you. Tomorrow is Friday.
Yes.
We shall take on reading. Okay? We shall take on reading. But Gina, please send the list of IELTS essay questions to.
Alright, thank you.
Alright, bye, switch mode. Send to Faith the questions. When you get those questions, try and develop anyone you prefer. Anyone.
From the questions.
Yes, from the list of questions. Right?
And develop how?
As in write an essay. Write a full essay.
Okay, from the
One of whatever she's going to send to you will comprise 5 different essay questions.
You can choose one.
Pick one.
Oh, okay, fine.
Right?
That's better.
Okay, so see you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. So I'm sorry I didn't come yesterday.
Yes, they told me you felt ill.
That rain.
You are beaten by the rain?
Yes, I'm very